You know that moment in a video game when your health bar drops into the red? One hit and it's over. What if that was real life? Imagine your bank account is that health bar. Your job, your health insurance, your rent, all of it sitting right at the kill zone. This is the concept that just exploded across Chinese social media. A single phrase reshaping how the world sees the American dream. They call it the kill line. Once you understand what it really means, you'll never look at your paycheck quite the same way again. It started on Bilibili, China's YouTube. In December 2025, a creator posted 5 hours of footage documenting poverty he claimed to witness across the United States. He showed delivery workers too hungry to take breaks, injured workers discharged from hospitals because they couldn't pay, children knocking on cold doors asking for food. But one story hit differently. A former software engineer, a gold-collar professional, someone who had a great salary, great career. He was living in a tent. Medical emergency, job loss, eviction. 3 dominoes fell in sequence. In the world's wealthiest country, 3 dominoes was all it took. Okay, pause. I need you to do something right now. If you lost your job tomorrow, how many months could you survive on savings alone? Really think. Here's what the Federal Reserve found. In 2024, 37% of American adults could not cover a surprise $400 expense using cash or its equivalent. $400. That's less than a car repair, less than one ER visit, less than some people's phone bills, and 37% cannot cover it. 13% of all adults, 1 in 8 Americans, said they literally could not pay that $400 by any means. Not cash, not credit, not borrowing. Only 55% of adults had saved enough to cover 3 months of expenses if their main income vanished tomorrow. Just over half. Think about your own neighborhood. That means nearly half of employed, tax-paying America is sitting one bad month away from a financial crisis they cannot recover from on their own. Pittsburgh National Bank's 2025 financial health report found roughly 67% of Americans are living paycheck to paycheck. 2/3. That's not a fringe statistic. Household debt hit a historic record as of Q3 2025, $18.59 trillion. Credit card debt alone broke $1.23 trillion. These aren't abstractions. They are people's lives. The average American carries $6,523 in credit card debt. And those cards charge an average annual rate of 22.25%, near a 30-year high. Does this feel abstract to you, or does it feel personal? Because for a lot of people, this isn't economics homework. This is Wednesday morning. That's the kill line. It isn't about being poor. It's about being one emergency away from a cascade the system wasn't built to catch you from. Now, here's the part that really messes with people's heads. It's called the welfare cliff, and it might be the cruelest design flaw in the American system. Say you earn $30,000 a year. Tough, but you qualify for Medicaid. You get food stamps, housing assistance. The safety net is holding you, barely, but holding. You work harder. You get promoted. Income jumps to $70,000. Congratulations, you just lost your Medicaid, your food stamps, and your housing subsidies, all at once. Now you're paying private insurance with deductibles that cost thousands before coverage kicks in. Run the numbers, and you might actually be financially worse off. For earning more, you worked harder. You earned more. Your take-home quality of life went down. That's not a metaphor. That's what researchers have documented happening to real families. Honestly, how does that make you feel? Because when I first understood this, I wasn't just surprised, I was genuinely angry. You get punished for trying. This is what researchers call the ALICE threshold. Asset limited, income constrained, employed. These people have jobs, they pay taxes, they're just not earning enough to be okay. ALICE families sit above the official poverty line. They're invisible in poverty statistics. But housing, food, childcare, healthcare, transportation, none of it adds up. They are exposed. They're trapped in a no man's land. Too rich for government help. Too poor to absorb any shock. This is where the kill line lives, right here in the middle. To understand how this happened, we need to go back to the 1950s, an era when America actually had something close to a functioning social contract for the middle class. Top marginal tax rates were over 90%. Strong unions covered 1 in 3 workers. The middle class was actively growing. Housing was affordable. The system shared risk. Brookings Institution researcher William Gale describes it this way. Government was the economic risk buffer. The policy logic was collective. We absorb shocks together, not alone. Then the 1970s hit. Stagflation, oil shocks, manufacturing moving overseas, and a fundamental shift in political philosophy that would dismantle that buffer piece by piece. Reagan's administration cut the top tax rate from 70% to 50% in 1981, then to 28% by 1986. Revenue fell. Social programs were squeezed. Here's a question. If unions protect workers' wages and bargaining power, who benefits most when they disappear? Think about it. I think you already know. Union membership fell from 20.1% in 1983 to just 10% by 2023. The link between worker productivity and worker wages? Broken. Corporate profit share rose, and social policy quietly shifted. Aid concentrated on the very poorest. Benefits phased out sharply as income rose. The middle class was excluded from the safety net's core. Fast forward to today. The economy is growing, on paper. Stock markets hit records. GDP looks fine. So why does almost everyone feel financially squeezed and anxious? Economists call it the K-shaped economy. Two groups, same starting point, but diverging paths. Like the two lines of the letter K splitting apart after a single moment. The top 10% of households hold more than 2/3 of all national wealth. The traditional middle 40%, their share shrank from 36% down to under 30%. A Gallup survey found 87% of households earning over $100,000 held stocks directly or indirectly. They rode the market boom. Most workers, they had wages. That was it. According to Bank of America data, middle-income wage growth over the past year was 2.3%. Low-income wage growth was just 1.4%. Inflation outpaced both of them. Housing costs, medical bills, childcare. These core expenses rose faster than median wages for years. The basics of ordinary life were quietly becoming unaffordable for millions. When you're at the grocery store lately, does something feel off? Because I hear this everywhere. The numbers on the shelf versus the number on your paycheck, they stopped matching. Consumer behavior is splitting apart. Budget fast food and discount retailers are doing great. Mid-range casual dining, the heartbeat of middle-class spending, is struggling badly. Buy now, pay later services are exploding in use, especially around sale seasons. More people deferring immediate costs they cannot cover. The math just stopped adding up for too many families. Remember those Reddit responses after the kill line story went viral in China? Real Americans, responding to a Chinese social media debate about their own lives. Here's what they said. One user wrote, "I consider myself financially okay with a good job. But if I was out of work for 1 month, I'd have 0 liquid assets." Another wrote, "I make an okay amount, enough to be comfortable. But I have debt, and a single accident would probably completely ruin me." One accident. Completely ruined. I read that and just sat still for a minute. One accident. Does that sound extreme to you, or does it actually sound uncomfortably familiar? A third commenter wrote, "As an American, yes, it is that bad. We've all been brainwashed into thinking this is just the way things are." That line hit hard. Multiple people described coworkers buried in medical debt, maxing out credit cards, skipping necessary care, taking second jobs just to manage bills from getting sick once. Then someone brought up J.D. Vance, the current Vice President of the United States, who had to sell blood plasma to stay afloat while dealing with student loans in law school. Chinese commenters latched onto that detail. If the future VP had to drain his body to survive student debt, what chance does an ordinary American ever have? Okay. Now here's the side of the story you might not have considered yet. Why is this kill line narrative exploding specifically in China right now? What's actually going on? Partly it's genuine. Medical debt, housing costs, student loans. These are real American problems, rigorously documented by the Federal Reserve, the New York Fed, and independent researchers. But the New York Times flagged something worth knowing. China's own economic growth is now half what it once was. Youth unemployment is high. Property values have stalled out. Stable jobs, rising property values, steady upward mobility. The familiar Chinese paths to security have also become less predictable. The middle class anxiety isn't just an American story. Here's what I want to sit with. When we focus intensely on someone else's problems, are we sometimes finding it easier than facing our own? What do you think? A Chinese legal blogger named Li Yuchen argued the kill line narrative functions less as an analytical tool than as an emotional interpreter. His essay was removed by censors. The formula is simple, he suggested. Magnify foreign suffering to make domestic struggles feel tolerable. Look how bad it is over there, and feel better about here. But the backlash tells a different story. Some Chinese users turned the phrase around completely, applying kill line to local policies that hit rural households with sharp heating cost increases. One WeChat writer put it perfectly. A topic does not gain traction simply because people are foolish. Often it spreads because confronting reality is harder. Truer words were never written. Back in America, the political response to all of this is, honestly, infuriating. Both parties see the problem clearly. Neither has actually solved it at all. Democrats tend towards subsidies, tax credits, incremental relief, but they've rarely managed to touch the underlying pricing mechanisms in healthcare and housing that actually drive costs up. Republicans, and especially the MAGA movement, channeled economic anxiety into cultural grievance. Blame immigrants, blame elites, blame China, the structural roots of the kill line. Untouched. The Qiushi Journal, the Communist Party's leading theoretical publication, published a formal piece calling the kill line the core mechanism of American-style capitalism. A meme entered official doctrine. Treasury Secretary Bessent, speaking at Davos, responded by saying the kill line was Democrats' fault, that Biden-era inflation had pushed grocery and rent prices up by 35 to 37%. So who's really to blame? Or maybe the sharper question is, does assigning blame actually help anyone sitting at the kill line right now? What would you say? Here is the structural reality. When institutional risk buffers, unions, progressive taxation, robust safety nets, are dismantled over decades, risk doesn't disappear. It transfers directly onto individual families. The people with the least resources absorb the most risk. That is not capitalism working as designed. That is capitalism operating after the social contract has been quietly removed. So what do we actually take from all this? The kill line isn't just a Chinese meme or a geopolitical talking point. It describes something real happening to real people. The Brookings Institution found that as of 2023, roughly one-third of the American middle class struggles to afford basic necessities. Food, housing, childcare, the bare basics of life. These are not people who made bad choices. These are people who followed the rules, got jobs, paid bills, stayed out of trouble, and the math still doesn't work. The distance between okay and crisis has collapsed. The safety net has so many holes that falling through it has become almost ordinary. A background hum of American life. And here's something striking. Chinese users who were supposed to be mocking America ended up describing their own anxieties. The kill line came home. It always does. Because the kill line is not a uniquely American concept, it is the question every society must answer. How much risk should individuals carry alone versus together? That is the real debate. So here's the question I want to leave with you today. If one unexpected bill, medical, mechanical, legal, could destabilize your life, what does that say about us? About the system we've built? About the choices, political choices, policy choices, decades of choices that brought us to this specific moment where the floor is made of glass? The kill line is a mirror held up to the wealthiest nation on earth, showing that sometimes how much money a country has tells you very little about how its people actually live, until America, or any society running the same experiment, addresses the structural fragility keeping its citizens in permanent financial anxiety. That mirror will keep reflecting the same image back. A phrase born in Chinese gaming culture, repurposed as social commentary, picked up by state media, debated on Reddit, validated by Federal Reserve data. That's the kill line story. One phrase, 3 words. And somehow, in the noise of the internet, it cuts through to something most Americans feel but rarely have the words to describe. Until now, the American dream was always built on a promise. Not of guaranteed success, but of a floor, a level below which society would not allow you to fall. The kill line suggests that for tens of millions of Americans today, that floor has cracked. And the crack has been spreading, quietly, statistic by statistic, for decades. So today's final question, and I want you to sit with this one. Is this the floor you're standing on? And if it is, what do you want to do about it? That's a wrap for today. The kill line. One phrase from a gaming forum, now holding up a mirror to the American dream. Think about it. I'll see you next time.